Very good morning, friends and doctors. Today with us, there is your teacher, the advisor, and the person who is known for his integrity in the field of psychiatry. None other but Dr. R.C. Jiloha. As all of you know, that Dr. R.C. Jiloha is a psychiatrist in Paras Hospital, Gurgaon. He had worked as director, professor, and head of Department of Psychiatry at GB Pant Hospital and Maulana Azad Medical College, Delhi. Welcome, doctor. Doctor, as you
Uh,
know, today's topic is prophylaxis of psychiatric patients for COVID-19. Would you put some light on this topic and share your initial comments on this topic?
Thank you, Deepak.
Thank you, sir.
And good morning, friends. Currently, we are passing through a very difficult period of time. The world is facing the biggest public health challenge of our times because of COVID-19. As all of you are aware that the story began in December 2019 when 27 cases of dry cough, fever, difficulty in taking breath were reported from the city of Wuhan in China with unknown etiology. These patients were further investigated to find that these persons were infected by a new virus, which had a significant similarity with earlier SARS and Middle East viruses. It was found that this virus is highly contagious and could spread from person to person within no time. And within a period of 3 months, the World Health Organization had to declare this outbreak as a global pandemic because of its spread. As you know, that coronavirus is a large family of RNA viruses, of which severe acute respiratory distress syndrome virus of 2002 and the Middle East coronavirus of 30s are the common members. This is a new addition, that is SARS acute respiratory syndrome coronavirus 2. And the disease caused by this is called COVID-19. It primarily affects the respiratory system, but at the same time, gastrointestinal system as well as central nervous system are also affected. And as the disease progresses, there is acute lung injury, there is acute respiratory distress syndrome, and there is respiratory failure in advanced cases. There is a cardiac failure, sepsis, and sudden cardiac arrest. And that's how the death takes place in this very illness. It's an inflammatory disease, and there is a dysregulation of innate inflammatory response in the individuals. There is also alteration in the immunomodulatory functions of the individual.
Right.
And that's how this illness takes place. Yes.
Also, my follow-up question to you is that how COVID-19 has an impact on psychiatric patients. Are they living with an are they living on the edge in COVID-19?
Yes, that's a very important question. And many times, even the clinicians ask this question whether there is any impact on the mental health or there is any kind of link or association between COVID-19 and mental health. Yes, there is a definite direct relationship between COVID-19 and mental health. Clinicians have often observed that initial symptoms in many patients are that they experience anosmia. There is a loss of smell, there is a loss of taste, and there is a deficit in cognitive and attention functions. Uh, And there is newly onset anxiety in some patients. There is a depression. There can be psychosis reported in many patients. There can be seizures. And suicidal behavior is also not uncommon in COVID-19 patients. These symptoms generally start before the respiratory system starts, but they can occur during the time when the respiratory systems are in the florid state, and sometimes even persist beyond the time when the respiratory symptoms are resolved. Follow-up studies have shown that 20 to 70% of COVID-19 patients experience these symptoms and persist even after the respiratory system symptoms have resolved. That reflects that these symptoms are independent of respiratory insufficiency. They are because of direct effect on the central nervous system. The commonly described risk factors for COVID-19 are old age and comorbidity. Comorbidity includes diabetes, hypertension, cardiovascular disease, and so on. Mental disorders are also the risk factor for coronavirus infection. Various illnesses like schizophrenia, mood disorders, anxiety disorders, depression, obsessive compulsive disorders, all these mental health conditions have vulnerability for catching infection of COVID-19 because of the alteration in the immune system. In case of schizophrenia, there is a deviation in the immune response, and because of that, they are easily get prey to the infection of COVID-19. Pandemic itself, as well as the resultant economic recession because of pandemic and lockdown, there are many barriers which are created in the life of individuals. There's no doubt that isolation, quarantine, maintaining social distance, these are beneficial measures as far as breaking the chain of infection is concerned. But at the same time, they are detrimental for the well-being of the mentally ill persons. The mentally ill who require socialization, interaction, are completely deprived during lockdown period. And even the stable patients who are maintaining well on medication, they also relapse into florid psychopathology. So that is another relationship which is there. Then genetic factors, which are very significant in mentally ill persons like schizophrenia and mood disorders, and the environmental stress, which is more in mentally ill persons as compared to the general population. They also alter the immune system response and add to the catching of infection. The overactivity of the immune system or inflammatory response in these patients is more as compared to in general patients. And as a result, there is a cytokine storm formation is more in these patients, and that leads to further damage of the lung tissue and other tissues in the body, which ultimately may result into death. So it could be a severe and fatal illness in mentally ill persons as compared to the general population. So immune dysregulation in these persons, particularly in case of schizophrenia, and added to it by the viral infection, both combine and make the illness more severe. Secondly, the brain communicates with the immune system through neurotransmitters and through the hormones. But in case of schizophrenia, this pathway is disrupted and leads to abnormal communication that is also responsible for getting more infection in the patient. So this an exaggerated immune response causes damage to the tissue of the body, as well as adds to the severity of illness and leads to death. So that's why the COVID-19 infection in mentally ill persons is more severe as compared to general population.
You rightly explained the link between the COVID-19 and the mental health person, the person living with mental health problems. In fact, you have also shared the pathophysiology behind this. Doctor, my next question to you is, what are the prophylactic drugs? Can the risk of having COVID-19 can be reduced? Please make us wiser on this topic.
Yes, that's a very important question. Sadly, since December 2019 till date, we have had 160 million people got infected with COVID-19. And there have been 3.4 million untimely deaths because of this infection, many of which could be prevented. These deaths have occurred because of the severity of the symptoms, more severe symptoms, which were responsible for causing deaths because of overreaction of the innate immune response that caused cytokine storm and led to death because of the injury of the tissue. To prevent the mortality among the COVID infected patients, it is necessary that severity of the symptoms is reduced. Scientists have been working day in, day out, and they have succeeded in getting the vaccine, but it's not possible to cover the entire world population to inoculate in the earliest time. It will take its own time. Moreover, at this moment, we don't have any specific drug for COVID-19. There has been a repositioning of various antiviral drugs like lopinavir, remdesivir, hydroxychloroquine, and the mechanical respiratory support in the form of oxygen supply and ventilators. These are the various measures which have been used for therapeutic intervention of COVID-19 patients. But the damage which is done to the patients, that can, which is exclusively responsible for causing death, that can be prevented. That damage can be prevented with certain drugs which are said to be prophylactic and they are neuroprotective, in other words to say. So they can be quite helpful. So we need to identify those drugs and use them. There have been many supplements which are currently being used, like vitamin C is one that has its action on the collagen synthesis and acts as an antioxidant and immunomodulatory drug, which is quite commonly used. We have vitamin D that downregulates the pro-inflammatory cytokines and thus prevents damage to the tissue. Then we have got selenium, which is also antioxidant and anti-inflammatory drug that can also be used. Then we have got zinc that increases the number of immune cells and thus increases the immunity of the person. We have melatonin with us. Melatonin is said to be responsible for balancing the overshooting of innate immune response.
You're absolutely
and
right.
Thus preventing.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, sir.
Yeah.
The melatonin is one of the drug which is coming unit, even the ICMR has proposed it in the new guidelines.
Yeah.
Doctor, though our
So
audience,
it also,
which are already knowing melatonin, about melatonin, would you explain melatonin in your words to the audience?
see, melatonin is a neurohormone which is present in the body. It is secreted by pineal gland, especially during nights. And after it is secreted, it goes into the bloodstream. And from there, it goes to the cerebrospinal fluid, to the third ventricle. But pineal gland also directly secretes melatonin into the third ventricle. So that way, the level of melatonin in third ventricle is higher than that of the bloodstream. That is one thing which we have to understand, because the entire therapeutic intervention depends on this very fact. So, as I said, that neurons also synthesize melatonin, and it is not a specific drug. I just want to clear, first of all, that it's not a specific antiviral drug. It is a general drug which has been successfully used in many conditions. It is a neuroprotective drug. And it has got its impact on the severity of illness, and it prevents the severity of the illness, and that's how it is helpful. So it can be considered as a suitable candidate for prophylaxis, for preventing death in the inflicted patients. It has several health promoting activities. It has been successfully used in sleep disorders in the dose of 3 milligrams. It is used in delirium patients. It is used in atherosclerosis. And it is also tried in respiratory disorders because of viral infection. Because it retards the process of degenerative process is retarded with, because neurons or the nerve cells are prone to get damaged with the viral infection, and this has helped in preventing that. It is also having modulatory effect on the pathways, pathophysiology. So that is how it is a neuroprotective drug. Being a neuroprotective drug, it can be safely used. And the various effects, or you can say properties of melatonin are that it is antiviral, first of all. Antiviral in the sense that all these RNA viruses are potentially very strong in replication. They multiply very fast, 1 to 2, 2 to 10, and so on and so forth. And they have also got the power of mutation. They change their morphology. Melatonin acts against that. It retards the process of replication. So that's how it acts as an antiviral. It is antioxidant as well. It limits the process of lipid pro-oxidation. And that's how it prevents the damage of the tissue. Thirdly, it is anti-apoptotic. The process of apoptosis, which leads to destruction of the cells, is prevented by melatonin. And it also regulates the effects of autophagy. That is a process in which it acts as a debris. Means whatever the waste material which is produced because of the destruction of the lung of the cells, that is cleared out of the cell. That's how it acts as a scavenger. So that's all is helpful. It has got immunomodulatory. It modulates the immune system in favor of the individual and thus protects the individual from getting severe illness. And of course, it is anti-inflammatory. So when the effect of inflammation is retarded or attenuated, that is very helpful for patient to avoid getting severity of the symptoms. And it also delays the process of inflammation and also reduces severity of the illness. So these are the various properties of melatonin, and that's how it's very helpful in preventing seriousness of COVID-19.
Doctor, the question to you is, so you beautifully explained it as a treatment part. That in treatment, it can be used as an adjuvant. So that is what we
Yes.
have to take, or is this medicine or this melatonin has to be used in prophylaxis? So would you clear this unit to your students or to your colleagues that where, according to you, it should be used, or it should be used in both the conditions?
See, traditionally thinking, and as the general belief is that melatonin is a life prolonging agent. It prolongs life of the individual.
Okay, sir.
This is speculated.
Okay.
And all of us know that it regulates the circadian rhythm in the person.
True.
And it also attenuates the cytokine storm, which is very dangerous for the tissue, body tissue and organs in causing destruction of the cells. So it attenuates, that is also a proven fact. But in case of elderly people, what happens is the nocturnal melatonin secretion decreases. So that is also a very vulnerable group for COVID-19, as all of us know it. So in old days, there is a decrease in immune response. That is the reason that they are more vulnerable. And because of this reason, they develop severe pneumonia, which can be very fatal and can lead to death. It is because there is a reduced nocturnal systolic blood pressure, and that is contributory to the pathology of the pneumonia which takes place into the elderly people. If there were high levels of melatonin in the bloodstream of these elderly people, this could be taken care of. And the severity of pneumonia which occurs in elderly people could be prevented. So the naturally produced melatonin is not sufficient in elderly people. So it means they require exogenous melatonin to fight the illness, isn't it? So that is the reason we require these persons to be medicated with melatonin. Obesity is another condition. We know that obesity is a risk factor for cardiovascular disease. And cardiovascular disease is a risk factor of COVID-19, isn't it? So this is also proven that melatonin has anti-obesity effect. So indirectly, it helps in preventing COVID-19. So even the normal people who are obese, if you give to them, this will be helpful in preventing and catching infection. Diabetes mellitus is also a risk factor for cardiovascular diseases, as all of us know it. And diabetics have a lower concentration of melatonin. This is also a proven fact. So if melatonin is given to the diabetic people, that will be helpful and that will strengthen their immunity. They will be better positioned to fight the infection of the disease. 75% of COVID-19 patients have associated comorbidity. This has been seen in various studies. So, if all these people are given melatonin, that will go a long way in fighting with the infection of COVID-19.
Dr. Sahab, I guess a week before I was talking with a doctor who is from AIMS, and he said that he is using melatonin to his, of course, he was a psychiatrist, and he is using melatonin for psychiatric patients as a prophylaxis because one is it takes care of the sleep problems of his patients. At the same time, it has an unit. The medicine has the chances of reducing the risk. How logical is it to use this drug for both the things in a patient who is living with mental health problems?
It's quite logical. Whatever has been discussed by you with the doctor it makes a sense. The reason being that psychiatric patients as such are at a greater risk to catch COVID-19 infection as compared to the general population. That's number one, because of the altered immune response. Secondly, the level of melatonin in bloodstream is lesser as compared to what we have in the third ventricle. And the inflammation and the massive pathology which takes place in COVID-19 patients requires adequate measures of or adequate levels of melatonin for fighting the disease. Not only fighting the disease, but also to protect the body from catching infection. So even not only the psychiatric patient, even it can be given to the patient, to the persons who are not having psychiatric illness or any of the comorbidities. Even normal people can also have it because it's quite safe. The suitable dose has to be decided. There have been many studies on the on the experimental animals, and the dose strength prescribed is quite variable. It depends on many factors which are responsible for variation of the dose. But a higher dose is required in certain conditions, like in psychiatric patients, because of the altered immune response and lesser availability of melatonin in the bloodstream. And secondly, in those persons who are exposed more to the risk of catching COVID-19, like in frontline health workers. So they may require even up to 40 milligrams per day. But in case of general population, it can be safely given up to 10 milligrams per day.
So, is melatonin a titrated drug? Is it a titrated drug? If it is a titrated, do doctor has to up titrate it or down titrate it? Because the medicine is very safe in nature. So, what is your recommendations to the doctors or the psychiatrists who are treating day to day their patients who are living with psychiatric problems or COVID-19?
See, one thing I want to make it very clear that is that this drug is very safe for human consumption. First of all, it is produced in the body itself, but level of drug decreases because of various reasons. whether it's because of age or because of other or other pathology. So it has to be supplemented from outside. Exogenous melatonin has to be given. It's non-toxic and it's very well tolerated by the body. Even in the experimental animals, it has been proven that even during pregnancy, during the entire gestation period of mice, 200 milligrams per kilogram body weight of mice was given to the pregnant mice. And after the gestation period, it was found that neither the baby nor the mother had any adverse effects. And the congenital abnormalities which were seen in mice were lesser as compared to the control group. So that reveals that this is a very safe drug and it can be very well tolerated by the individual. So even in human beings, in human patients, it has been given up to 1000 milligrams per day for 3 months without any adverse effects. Of course, mild side effects have been observed in some patients like dizziness, headache, more sleepiness. These are the usual symptoms, but there are no any serious, dangerous, or uncontrollable side effects. So it can be very safely given to the patients. So it can also be very safely administered IV, intravenously, particularly in those patients where we need to prevent the progress of sepsis or further damage to the tissue, and to prevent mechanical ventilation, like putting the patient on ventilator. There it can be given IV as well. So that way it is suitable for prophylactic use. It can be given alone. It can be given in the combination of other drugs. Secondly, it is readily available and easily synthesized. It can be quickly synthesized in large quantities according to the demand of the patients. And it's not very expensive as well. It is safe and can be self-administered. So that way it is quite approachable drug. So in the end, I would like to say that it has got many beneficial effects. It is antioxidant, it is anti-inflammatory, and it has got immunoregulatory effect, and thus prevents and attenuates the severity of illness, particularly cytokine storm formation.
Doctor, there are two questions which have come from the audience. One is that what is the optimal high dose one can given in COVID-19 prophylaxis and treatment?
It has been tried even up to 40 milligrams. It has been given in frontline health workers and who are exposed to the risk of further damage and to prevent death. It can be safely given up to 40 milligrams, and usually recommended dose is 10 milligrams a day in the normal people. It can be given. And in that particular doses, it has been seen if given, it reduces the positivity rate of catching infection of COVID-19 to 30%. That is quite a significant number.
So my next question is, in fact, Can melatonin be safe and tolerable for all the age groups and sex?
Yes, partly I already answered this question, that since it is manufactured in the body itself, and it's a natural neurohormone which is already there in the body, and to some extent it is there in our food as well. So it's very safe. And there's no toxicity, and it's very well tolerated as well. Even in the experimental animals, in the mice, up to the dose of 1250 milligrams per kilogram body weight was given for 3 months, and there was no adverse side effects of the drug in the experimental animals. And even in human beings, it has been tried and used up to 1000 milligram maximum, and there were no adverse side effects. So in day-to-day clinical practice, it can be given very safely 10 milligrams per day to any person. And in the frontline workers who are more exposed to the risk, up to 40 milligrams, it can be given.
Doctor, in the last, what is your closing remarks for COVID-19 and mental, the patients which are living with mental health problems?
See, my closing remark for this is that melatonin is an agent which is available with us, and it has got a neuroprotective quality, can be safely given without any toxic effects, and it is beneficial to the patient, particularly psychiatric patients who have got compromised immune system and are more exposed to the risk of damage to the tissue and more prone to mortality. In such type of people, to prevent mortality and damage to the body tissue, melatonin as a prophylaxis is an appropriate and suitable agent. It should be tried. It should be given. And I'm sure it will be definitely helpful to the patient.
Doctor, very thank you to come to the discussion forum where you have shared your insights on this topic, and thank you very much. Thank you very much once again. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Deepak.
Thank you.